I will start by sharing my screen. Okay, so as Vanya mentioned, I'll be talking about techniques to modify the surface wettability of several materials commonly used at INESCAMEN. Okay, so I'll start by presenting the motivation and objectives that guided this work, followed by why it is important to assess the wettability of substrates and how it can help us assess the adhesion and other forces at the surface level. Then I'll present some wettability models to help understand how the contact angle can translate into important information regarding the wettability, followed by several methods for surface wettability modification. Then I'll present the experimental techniques that I used in this work, followed by the results that came from it. And as Vanya said, I applied these techniques in several materials like silicon, microscope glass, thermoplastics, polymers such as SU8 and PDMS, and several thin films. Moving on to the motivation of this work, microfabrication allows us as users to fabricate very complex structures at the macro and nanoscale. And one field of science that it's highly influenced by microfabrication is microfluidics. However, when we are working at the macro and nanoscale, there is a high surface to volume ratio, which can lead to unwanted surface to surface adhesion. For example, when we are trying to build a PDMS structure out of an SU8 mold, or even further on when we have a microfluidic device with a biological application and we suffer bioanalyte to surface adhesion that can compromise the efficiency of the assay. A way that we can surpass this problem is to alter the surface wettability by chemical and physical methods. By changing the surface wettability, we can tailor the adhesion forces. The objective of this work was to achieve surface wettability modification of several materials by two methods. The first was chemical functionalization by RT-CVD with 3 chemical agents, and the second was the implementation of a deterministic roughness. These two, the modification of these two methods was then assessed by measurements of contact angle. So why is wettability important to assess? Wettability is highly related to adhesion and cohesion forces as to other phenomena at the surface level by surface energy. So if we alter the surface chemistry by adding polar or non-polar groups or by altering the surface topography, we immediately alter the wettability, which is very easy to access by measurements of contact angle. To understand contact angles, we need to understand the wettability models that explain this phenomena. To understand the wettability of smooth surfaces, we can rely on the Young's model. As we can see here, it relates the interfacial energies between solid, vapor, and liquid. And we can see here that the contact angle translates into hydrophilic surfaces or hydrophobic surfaces, depending on if the contact angle is lower than 90 degrees and higher than 90 degrees.
Patricia, may I make a comment? Can you use the mouse to show exactly what you are pointing in the presentation?
Can you see my mouse? I didn't know.
Yes.
You can see it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Thanks.
so thank you. So here are the interfacial energies between solid vapor, solid liquid, and liquid vapor. And the 90 degrees is the limit value, the most important value, because below it, it's hydrophilic, which means that the surface interacts very well with the liquid. And higher than 90 degrees, it's hydrophobic, which means that the surface repels the liquid. The two other models are the Casey-Baxter and the Wenzel model that explains the wettability on patterned or rough surfaces. In the case of the Casey-Baxter model, this model defends that after applying roughness to a substrate, the contact angle always increases because when the droplet is in contact with the substrate, air gets trapped between the crevices. So the droplet has a tendency to curl up on itself and the contact angle increases. As for the Wenzel model, after applying roughness, the liquid can always penetrate the crevices, and so the influence of the contact angle depends on the initial wettability of the substrate. So if the substrate was initially hydrophilic, it becomes more hydrophilic. Of course, there are more techniques to assess the surface wettability modifications. We have techniques for chemical characterization, like, for example, XPS, X-ray photoelectron spectroscopy. All of these techniques we can find in different labs at Instituto Superior Técnico. And of course, we also have techniques for physical characterization, being one of them SEM, or scanning electron microscopy, which we have at INESC-EMEN. There are several methods for surface wettability modification, as we have here on this slide, but in this work I will only be focusing on two: chemical coating by room temperature chemical vapor deposition and patterning by a photolithography process. Moving on to the experimental techniques, I will first introduce or explain what is RTCVD, which is a technique that I used majorly at INESC-EMEN. Room temperature chemical vapor deposition is a gas phase process where you start with a chemical agent, a silane, in the liquid phase, which is exposed to a pressure environment, turning from the liquid phase to a gas phase. These gas molecules will interact with the substrate under the same pressured environment, which have a specific chemistry. Then a chemical reaction or interaction occurs between the silane molecules and the substrate, leaving different groups on top of the substrate, which leads to alteration of the surface wettability. This process, where we use a silane to alter the chemistry of the substrate, is called silanization. And so to perform silanization by RTCVD, first I had to prepare the several substrates that I mentioned earlier, and then the silanization was performed inside a vacuum desiccator that you can find at the PDMS room. So basically, the samples were introduced inside the desiccator along with 6 microliters of the silane. And for all of these substrates and with the 3 different silanes that I used, several exposure times were evaluated from 2 to 15 minutes to understand if the silanization was happening, if any threshold was being accomplished. As for the usage of deterministic roughness, I only choose thin films of silicon dioxide, and by simple processes that are commonly used at INESC-EMEN of photolithography, I was able to fabricate squared structures or patterns, as you can see here on the left, squares with different sizes and spacing between them to assess the impact on surface wettability. After patterning the substrates and chemically exposing other substrates, I used the setup on the left to perform measurements of contact angle. I had a syringe pump that would deposit or dispense 6 microliters of deionized water on top of my substrates that would be inside this sample stage. With the help of a backlight source, I was able to photograph all of the droplets, which came around 963 photographs. And with the software ImageJ LBase, I was able to evaluate or measure the contact angle. Moving on to the results, I would first like to introduce how I organize my data for easier understanding. I will present my data according to the initial wettable behavior of the substrates. So first I'll present the hydrophilic substrates that are silicon, glass, and aluminum films, which have majorly hydroxyl groups at the surface. Then the substrates with hydrophobic tendency, which is silicon dioxide, gold, and thermoplastics, which show a mixture of oxygen and carbon atoms. And finally, hydrophobic substrates, which are the polymers, which expose majorly hydrophobic groups. The silanes that I mentioned before are presented in this slide with their chemical conformation. composition. And here below we can see a general scheme of how they interact with the substrates. Normally silanes have an hydrophobic tail or hydrophobic groups, which when are in the proximity of the substrate form a self-assembled monolayer in which the head groups that have high affinity to the chemistry of the substrate interact with the substrate, leaving functional groups different from the ones present initially on the substrate and leading to an alteration of the surface wettability. Regarding the data, for the hydrophilic surfaces, we can see here that glass and silicon, after being exposed to HMDS and FTTS, showed an increasing contact angle reaching an hydrophobic tendency, while alumina, after being exposed to these two silanes, reached an hydrophobic behavior. If we compare these two graphs, we can see that with FTTS, the threshold of the SAM coverage was obtained earlier than with the HMDS. The reasoning behind the increase of contact angle is pure covalent bonding. As we can see here, HMDS molecules react with the oxygen present on the substrate, forming a covalent bond and leaving non-polar groups exposed at the substrate. This similar reaction occurs with FTTS, where in the end we have CF2 and CF3 groups exposed at the substrate, which have a high hydrophobic potential, as we can see here on the photographs. From the substrate that I mentioned before in the hydrophilic, only alumina was exposed to APTS, and we observed that the contact angle has increased more than 40 degrees, which indicated that possibly the APTS molecule was reacting in a different way that was published in the literature. So basically, APTS is this molecule, which is very hygroscopic, which means that it reacts very easily with water, suffering hydrolysis. And normally what happens is that after hydrolysis, this molecule establishes a covalent bond with hydrophilic surfaces. However, the increasing contact angle that we observed was much greater than the ones present in the literature. And so after CPS analysis, we observed that a PTS molecule was reacting in a different way, establishing a nitrogen bond with the substrate and thus exposing all of the ethoxy groups on the substrate. As for the substrates with hydrophobic tendency, we can see here that silicon dioxide suffered an increase in contact angle after being exposed to these both silanes. Silicon dioxide presents an initial hydrophobic tendency because it has, as I mentioned before, some carbon atoms. And here, after being exposed to HMDS, this increase is associated to some hydroxyl groups that were still present on the substrate and that could react with HMDS. Regarding FTTS, we can see that although the number of hydroxyl groups available for reaction were low because of the carbon atoms, we still reach a threshold much sooner than with HMDS. This is because FTTS has a very high hydrophobic potential, and even if it does not establish covalent bonds with the substrate, the fact that it is present on top of the substrate impacts surface wettability. As for gold thin films, we can see that they only suffered an increase in contact angle after being exposed to FTTS. Gold thin films do not have any hydroxyl groups on them due to their non-oxidative character. So what happened is that an FTTS layer was present on top of the substrate and it was unattached. And when I say unattached, it means that it didn't form any hydrogen bonds or covalent bonds. After exposure to APTS, we can see that silicon dioxide suffered an increase in contact angle. This is the same logic as the one previously for HMDS. So it was what happened was the establishment of a covalent bond. As for gold thin films, we observed a decrease in contact angle, and this was not expected because in the literature, normally what happens is that a PTS establish an electrostatic interaction with gold thin films, exposing the ethoxy groups that would lead to an increasing contact angle. So what we hypothesize is that because there was no control of the water present in the environment, which can be water inside the atmosphere of the desiccator or even present on the substrate, because the substrate did not suffer any heating step before salinization, it is possible that under pressure, the water that was present was able to hydrolyze some of the etoxy groups that were present after the interaction, leading to the exposure of hydroxyl groups. And we go even further by saying that it is possible that some APTS molecules that were present in the atmosphere could react with the ones that were already attached on the substrate, leading to the exposure of amine groups, which also have a bigger affinity to polar liquids, in this case ionized water, compared to the epoxy groups. As for the substrates with hydrophobic tendency, I will start by the substrates. I will finish off with the PET, the thermoplastics. We can see that PET thermoplastic, after being exposed to these two silanes, suffered a decrease in contact angle. This was also not expected, because both of these silanes have a high hydrophobic potential, especially FTTS. Regarding these results, we still need further analysis, and we will perform a SHIS-PS analysis to understand how the molecules are interacting with PET and what is the real molecular orientation. As for polystyrene or PS thermoplastic, we can see that it only suffered an increase in contact angle after exposure to FTTS. And as you can see on the bottom right, PS shows a benzene ring on its surface. So it cannot react with FTTS molecules unless it suffers an intermediate activation step, like oxygen plasma. So what we assume here that happened was, as well as for PMMA, is that a layer of FTTS molecules is present on the substrate and being only held in place by physical adsorption, which is more than enough to alter the surface wettability. However, when PMMA was exposed to HMDS, we see that it was a slight decrease of the contact angle, and then with the increment of time, we observed the return to the initial wettability. We can see here on the bottom left that PMMA exposes a methoxy group, so an oxygen bonded to a CH3 group. So what may have happened here is that HMDS molecule adopted a specific conformation that would expose not the methyl groups, but instead the amine moiety, which has more affinity to polar groups than the CH3 groups, which may explain the slight decrease in contact angle. As for the exposure to APTS, we can see that PET suffered an increase in contact angle after 30 minutes of exposure. And as we can see here on the bottom left, PET has a double bonded oxygen, which allows the establishment of hydrogen bonds with the APTS molecules. The same reasoning goes for the increase of contact angle of the PMMA thermoplastic, which shows also a double bonded oxygen. However, for polystyrene, due again to the inactivated benzene ring, there is no possible reaction with the APTS molecules. However, we observe an increase in contact angle due to the original hydrophobic potential of the APTS molecules. As for hydrophobic surfaces, we can see that PDMS only showed an increase of contact angle after being exposed to FTTS. Again, this is due to an attached layer of molecules, because PDMS only exhibits poorly reactive CH3 groups, leaving only the hypothesis that an unattached layer of molecules of silane is present. On the other hand, when we expose SU8 to these two silanes, we observe the decrease in contact angle, and this can be explained by two chemical reactions. In the case of HMDS, it can react with the epoxy group that is present on SU8 by a nucleophile attack, as we can see here, opening the epoxy group and leaving polar groups formed on the substrate, which is responsible for the decrease in contact angle. As for the reaction with FTTS, some authors defend that after a post-exposure bake, some of the epoxy groups present on SU8 can open, generating on its own free hydroxyl groups, which facilitates a covalent bond with the FTS silane. In this scenario, FTTS is less hydrophobic than the SU8 itself. As for the pattern thin films, just a quick reminder of what we did. We used the photolithography process to design different shaped and spaced squares to understand its effect on surface wettability with a constant height. After evaluating the results where the size of the substrates or the L variant varied from 1 to 5 and the spacing or D varied from 2 to 5, we can see that all the structures that were implemented led to an increase in contact angle. So this led to the conclusion that the Cassie-Baxter model applied. However, if we look to the graph on the left side, we have two types of data. We have for a spacing of 5 and a spacing of 3. For the same square size, we see that the smaller the spacing, the higher the contact angle. And this is due to the formula that is presented here on the left. This formula represents the vertical force that the droplet feels when in contact with a pattern substrate, where delta P is the Laplace pressure between air and the liquid, and A is the projected area between the air and the liquid again. So basically, when the droplet is in contact with this type of surfaces, an energy barrier is established between the air and the liquid. And there is a very stable equilibrium between air, liquid, and substrate. So the smaller the spacing, the higher the pressure must be to surpass this surface barrier that is present between these two elements. Just following up to the summary, we can see that we saw that for RTCVD, silanization was very efficient, which was still very, it was normally performed by CVD, which requires high temperatures, and we were able to do it at room temperature. Between the three silanes, we saw that FTTS and APTS were more efficient when considering the time of exposure. APTS reacted in a different way that was normally written in the literature. Instead of suffering hydrolysis and establishing covalent bonds, it preferred to establish hydrogen bonds. And regarding the thermoplastics, we could see that this method was a rapid and reversible way to chemically cover the thermoplastics to use them in other several procedures. As for the deterministic roughness, in the range that we considered of spacing and size of the structures, it seems that spacing has a higher impact on surface wettability. Of course, there are other influences and variables that we need to further address, like the effects of a bake step after silanization to strengthen the covalent bonds, the effects of higher activation times, the durability of silanization, and define limits between the Cassie-Baxter and the Wenzel limits and the Wenzel models, because a droplet can go from one model to the other depending on the structures, and of course evaluate this type of roughness on other thin films. I would like to mention that part of this work has already been published on colloids and surface A. And this year we started off with 2 new submissions regarding the paper of thermoplastics and thin films. To end this presentation, I would like to acknowledge the team at INESCMN, and team is in bold and caps lock because we really are a team in the concept of the work. They are very hardworking people. We help each other out, and it's really a team in a welcoming environment. And I don't think I could be here today if it wasn't for them. All of them helped me in some way. I would also like to acknowledge Professor Ana Maria Botelho do Rego and Dr. Ana Maria Ferraria, the ones that helped me with the XPS analysis, and of course FCT and the Aramet project for funding this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia, for this very nice and fast presentation with a lot of information. So I would welcome the participants to pose questions if they wish, because I believe that maybe they have some interesting questions about. And Virginia, go ahead.
Thank you, Patricia. That was a very nice talk.
Thank you.
I don't know if you had a lot of experience giving talks, but it was very well done. I just have a question. You mentioned at the end that you were one of the things that you're going to be working on is the stability or the durability of the silent.
The durability.
Yeah. So that was my question. Do you have any comments, or have you started looking at how stable these modified surfaces are, how long it lasts?
Yeah, actually, I already made some essays with the HMDS and FTTS on silicon glass, and normally the salinization lasted at least 3 days. But I would like to extend that type of information to maybe a week, because normally, if we want to use salinization on microfluidic devices or something that is constantly used and washed, I would like to understand how durable it is. For the researchers can use constantly the device without having to somehow functionalize again the substrate.
Yeah, or have it changing as a function of time.
Exactly.
So do you have any feeling about how this method of this RT-CVD compares with other methods of salinization that are, I think, maybe more standard? Is do these surfaces last longer? Do you have any feelings about that?
I don't have exactly a feeling regarding the durability, but I have a feeling about the simplicity of the techniques.
Mm-hmm.
For example, RT-CVD, you only need 6 microliters of a chemical reagent,
Mm-hmm.
which you can select according to the application that you want. For example, if you want to use it in a biological application, I would suggest that you use APTS instead of FTTS.
Mm-hmm.
But APTS, for example, it's very used in biological applications in the liquid salinization.
Right.
And the downside of that is that the APTS suffers hydrolysis very quickly. Normally, it does not react as I presented here with hydrogen bonds, so it suffers some chemical alteration, and it's very expensive.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to control the hydrolysis, and it becomes very expensive. And normally, I think the salinization it's performed, it takes hours.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
1
I think
hour,
so.
2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other question? Mustafa, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Very nice talk. And then just I recognize you say XPS, and then, but I cannot see any result from XPS. What is your aim to use XPS? What do you measure with XPS?
Oh, XPS was not the focus of my work. I have some results that were given to me by Professor Ana Maria Botelho and Dr. Ana Maria Ferraria. So they basically just explained me the technique, and they were the one that performed the analysis. It was not me. Okay. I just evaluated with them the results.
Yes, but if I can add, so the idea of this analysis is to understand exactly what is the amount of each of the chemical elements in the sample, and depending on the angle that you are analyzing your sample, you can actually understand if the element is it's on the surface, is a bit below the surface, it's the first, the second, the third, the fourth in the layer. So it's a way of understanding how the molecule is conformed. If it is on this position, if it is laid down. So in that sense, the technique was very useful to understand how the molecule would attach to the surface.
Also depend on the geometry and the binding energy change, and then from the binding energy you can understand which kind of.
Yes. That's how we understand that the APTS molecule was indeed establishing hydrogen bonds, because the atoxic groups were at the top, were the ones that were measured more efficiently. And then by binding energies, we could also understand that there was a hydrogen bond present on the surface.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Any other questions? So I have a question for you, Patricia. If I have, for example, if I intend to put a sensor, a magnetoresistive sensor on my microfluidic chip, and I want to impede, I do not want adherence of, for example, the cells that I am trying to analyze with the magnetic particles around them. What do you think, and if I still didn't choose my material for the microfluidic chip, what do you think it would be the best approach for having this setup working? Like with your results, could you advise a material and a salinization or a surface wettability modification technique to prevent, for example, the formation of biofilms and things like that?
Okay, so if I had to choose, I would say a thin film that shows some level of hydroxyl groups, for example, silicon dioxide, but maybe if you want to increase the bonding probability or the coverage of the silane, I would suggest an oxygen plasma treatment to increase the number of hydroxyl groups. And then, since you would be working with cells, I would say the APTS would be the best silane to use.
Okay. And if I want to, so this type of, so all the process, it would take me what, the plasma oxidation and then the salinization, right? So how long do you think it would take to make all of this?
10 minutes.
Wow. Good. That's good. Any other questions for Patricia? Anyone there?
Okay, I can make a question to Patricia. Patricia,
Hi. Yes.
Hi, Veronica. How uniform do you have made studies in the uniformity of this salinization process? So, do you think the surface is all uniform? You have some type of continuous film or chemical modification, or did you notice differences in wettability along the surfaces you used?
Okay, so if I'm understanding what you are saying, what I did was 3 measurements for the same substrate exposed to the same silane and the same liquid with the same exposure time. I put 3 droplets on top of it to understand if the coverage was total, or as you said, what was the word that you used?
Uniformity.
Uniform. Yeah.
How big are the areas that you have studied?
Around, I don't know by heart, but they are like.
But are centimeters?
Centimeters.
Okay.
No, centimeters. Yeah.
Millimeters, centimeters.
Centimeters. Centimeters. Wait, I think I have.
Okay.
Image here that can help.
So and you measure.
So here you see
Okay.
This is 5 millimeters.
Millimeters, 10, okay.
Millimeters.
Okay, it's centimeters.
The substrates were big enough for me to put more than 3 droplets, and sometimes I did it. And since I observed that it was uniform, the data was all uniform, I stick to 3.
Okay, so it was uniform in your.
Yes.
In your.
Yes, in my opinion, it was.
Okay.
Actually, Patricia, can I add something? You were showing a graph earlier
Which one?
that can show a bit what you are mentioning about uniformity, because you see
Yes,
to the front.
For the same exposure
example,
time, we
that.
can see here, yeah, that we have all the points are very proximal. So here are 3 points.
Small
here
standard
are 3.
deviation.
Yeah.
And then it just keeps stable. No matter how much material you put on top of it, it just keeps stable. So that it seems that the surface is already saturated.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I dare another one of you to pose another question to Patricia. So Sara, I saw Sara. Sara, you are also going to do selenization, right? Do you have any question to Patricia?
I have already talked with her outside of this talk.
Yeah, she is using HMDS between
exactly.
PDMS and SU8 to facilitate the peeling step, because she is producing very small cilia in PDMS.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yes,
maybe I have another question, just to clarify. You have in your patterned in the view. Can you go to the slides with the patterns?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Here or on the data?
Next, on the data. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. This is just to clarify. What do you mean by 0? What is it when you say 0?
Okay. I didn't explain. Sorry. For every essay, I have the time, the null time, which corresponds to the substrate that is not altered. So here is silicon dioxide with no structure.
No pattern. Okay.
No pattern. Yeah.
Okay.
And on the others, there's the ones that have no chemical on top of it.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Francisca, any question for the microfabrication of microfluidics?
By this time, no.
Okay. Just that you that are doing microfluidics, maybe it's a good time to pose, to clarify your doubts. For example, for structures where you need to do molds from SU8 into PDMS, if you have high structures and they are thin, for example, an intermediate step of surface modification is very important, so you can actually peel your PDMS from the SU8. For example, in cilia, what happens is if you don't do any process to then make this peeling a bit easier, what happens is you lose a lot of cilia that remain inside the SU8. So they are ripped from the PDMS structure and they remain in the SU8. And that will not only damage your molded PDMS, but you will not be able to use the mold again because it has PDMS inside, and you are not able to remove it, not even with scissors.
Yes, now I've recently started to make HDMS selenization also. Paper, and I adapted to that scenario.
And what are the sizes of your structures?
Oh, the big ones? Or
no, the small. The small, because you need the facilitating peeling for the small structures, right?
Yes, small have 10 micrometers of distance of between them, length around 600, and the thickness 10 micrometers too.
Okay, very small structures, and they are very close to each other, right?
Yes, yes.
Mm.
It will be a problem also when I'm peeling off my PDMS because of the accumulation of polymer in dead parts. The process will help me to keep my molds intact to more time.
Yeah, true. Also, because the peeling is facilitated, the adhesion forces are a lot less, so they are less prone to bring the SU weight attached to the PDMS.
Yes, yes, it is really the difference is really from night to day when peeling off PDMS from, from a substrate without and with silanization. No comparison between them.
Glad to hear it.
Patricia, actually, I have another question about the stress that some materials. So if you put several layers of different materials on top of each other, most of the times, for example, if you impose a temperature or if you bend or things like that, you have, because you have different materials, you have different stresses within the different materials. Do you think this approach is a good approach, like to diminish those stresses between materials? For example, if I want to bond, I don't know, a thermoplastic to PDMS or something like that, do you think this would help to reduce stresses?
Oh yeah, of course, because the stress is related to the adhesion between materials. So if the adhesion is too strong, the stress will make it crackle. We will see some damage on the material. If we tailor the adhesion with this type of technique, we can diminish the stress between materials. Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. So any other question? Like Dirkin, Katarina, Rafaele, Suzanne? You haven't spoken yet. And we still have 15 minutes, if we wish. No? No other questions? Okay.
I can ask a question from somebody who knows nothing about it.
Perfect.
Are you happy with the modification of your surface, or for application you would need still better treatment of your surface?
Yes, I'm happy with the results, because even with the structures that could not react chemically with the silanes, we observed some alteration of the contact angle. And this is very important because it allows for a wide range of applications. So normally the information that is published regards only covalent bonding. And this shows that it's not necessary a lot of intermediate steps to achieve an alteration of surface wettability and adhesion. So this can be applied in several fields, and particularly in a lot of procedures done at Ineshkamen. Yeah, so I'm very happy with the results.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, if we don't have further questions, I will steal the screen from Patricia. Just to let you know that we have, in 2 weeks, we will have the seminar given by Dr. Haddadi Heydari. He is an associate professor at the University of Glasgow and will be talking about magnetic sensors for biomedical microsystems. So this information will be available on our website. And as our last seminar 2 weeks ago, you will need to register for to receive the link for the seminar. And I believe there is another notification that I need to make. So there was an extension on the deadline for the application for PhD scholarships until the 14th of February, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
am I
that's correct? That's correct.
No. And I don't know, have a good weekend and be strong to work during next week, something like that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Bye-bye. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you all for coming.
Wait. Yes?
No, I was remembering that in a month, we will have Dirkin talking in the next student seminar.
Great.
Also. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Thank you
Yeah,
all.
have a nice weekend.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you. You too.
Bye.